What is up, folks? Here we are, of course, finally, the recap of season one. We are so glad to have you, and we are super excited to have our very special guest, Noah Glos, with us. He is at Noah Glos on TikTok and Instagram. He is funny, he is fun, and our new resident in Inosuke K-Stan. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, Noah.
Thank you so much for having me. What's up, everybody? My name's Noah. I love Inosuke through and through. Love Giyu now. So I'll be supporting them whenever they come up. Fun fact about me, I guess I have two. One in relation to anime. I actually just got into it not even a year ago, probably June of 2022. Demon Slayer was my first anime I've seen. Loved it. Then I watched Attack on Titan and got a Crunchyroll subscription, and the rest is history. So, I am happy to be here. And another fun fact is I've never been to Disney World, so we're gonna change that. So,
I love that. There's a lot of anime-inspired Disney ears that you could probably go to as well, so those are fun. I've seen like Zenitsu ears and such. But of course, here we are. It's me, your host, one of the few people who's going to catch Zenitsu when he falls, Bryan, and of course, the rest of our motley crew is here, Emily and Hannah.
Hi guys, what's up? It's Emily. Really excited to be here. So happy to have Noah joining us this week. And how crazy is it that we're already wrapping up season one? I mean, I get maybe for me it feels faster than it does for people who were listening to it, because I guess it's been about half a year, but I don't know. I feel like it flew by, and I'm just so excited to recap season one and then to jump into season two and season three that's coming out in a couple months. So it's going to be a really good time, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
What's up, everyone? It's Hannah. Also very excited to have Noah here. We've been chatting on TikTok for quite a while now, so it's exciting to actually like interact with him in person, kind of over Zoom. But I currently, right now, there are multiple leaks on Twitter for the new Demon Slayer movie and like the Upper Moon meeting, and I keep getting leaks, and I'm fine with it, first of all. But holy frick, I'm eating good right now, and we're going to see the movie. At least Bryan, Emily, and I, because it's in Los Angeles, are going to the movie in 2 weeks. So my heart is fluttering with excitement currently.
All right. Well, looking at it, right, this season was a great starting point for what we know as the manga readers, right, to be a great setup for a long storyline. With that being said, let's take a peek at our first episode. Now that we're at the finish line of the first season, how do Tanjiro and Nezuko compare to themselves from the first episode?
Oh my gosh, I mean, the difference is night and day, right? Thinking back to our very first episode, and what a strong first episode it is, but like they're kind of weak at the beginning compared to where they are now. Not that I would call them weak next to the standard of like probably what the average human is, but Tanjiro didn't know how to hold a sword or even begin to approach fighting anything like demons, because at that point in time, it was something that was kind of like a folktale. It wasn't something that had real world consequences in his life. And Nezuko, of course, at the very beginning of the episode starts off as human. So it's really come full circle now to the end, where he's gone through rigorous years of training at this point. She has undergone several stages of her kind of like sleep paralysis and like sleep hypnosis, and has also gotten stronger and is learning more about her capabilities as a demon. And they're both inching closer to being able to return her to that human state. But they've become a lot stronger in the process, now able to take on some of the 12 Kazuki on their own, which would not have worked in the first episode. So it's really incredible the amount of growth that they've shown over the course of 25-minute episodes.
My children. Oh, they've grown so much just in power and abilities, but also with each other. I think, obviously the reason that they're as close as they are now is incredibly sad, because obviously they were close with their entire family, and now they're all that each other has. And just seeing them kind of grow through that and experience everything together and work together to save each other's lives no matter what is going on, just to see what happened in the beginning, and Nezuko starts saving his life from the get-go. it's just really powerful to see them grow into their characters and be able to work as a team. And of course, that one final remark from Tanjiro at the end of the season saying Nezuko and I will be together forever, or however he said it, was just really sets up the story of what's going to happen here on out. And I can't wait.
I think this story and this question in particular is a good reminder that Tanjiro and Nezuko are the center of the story equally, at least in my view. Whenever Tanjiro and Nezuko are not in frame, if one of them is versus the other, they're still just as important, even if they're not there, because it's an unconditional, I guess, kind of love and bond that they have. And I think towards the end of season 1, it is, that love is still the same. I think it's more solidified. I think more open, because Tanjiro really will do anything in his power to make sure she is okay. And from what we do not know yet, we know that there's going to be even bigger threats than what we've seen. So, and we know at the end of the day, Tanjiro, regardless, is going to be as resilient as he ever can be. So it's going to be really cool seeing that.
Definitely. It does really feel like you're looking almost at, two different people, one different demon, if you will, right? But looking at, zooming in on Tanjiro specifically, he's the only person that we know so far that can perform or actively practice 2 different breathing styles, right? Did you think that this was a sign of Tanjiro being the chosen one again, as we've seen a couple times throughout the season? Or is this just him, changing his approach to his job?
I mean, I think my heart is just, this is what he wants to do. This is his heart talking. I wouldn't say it's a change of heart, because I think he has always kind of had this deep inside him. And we're, really going to learn even more of his backstory moving forward. And I think there is those kind of chosen one vibes, I guess you can say, of there's a reason for everything. There's a reason why Rengoku, for example, is going to be as important as he is, with what is prefaced in season 1, just with this backstory that we can have. So I think we're going to see a lot of just that kind of chosen one of the heart of it, with the influence, especially from the people that he meets really for the first time.
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting question, and I personally feel like it's somewhere in the middle. To an extent, there probably has been a little bit of a change of heart as he continues to develop and grow and to hone his skills. On the other hand, I do think that there is an element of being the chosen one. He's the only person that's been able to encounter Muzan in hundreds of years, and he inadvertently unleashes this ancient fighting style that no one has heard about or seen in a very, very long time. And clearly it's the one that he's most suited to. Now, the key word in that last sentence, I do think, is inadvertently, because he really had been training the entire time under a previous water Hashira. And so the fact that he was able to get as strong as he was when that's not his natural inclination is pretty incredible. But I still don't think that it's going to measure up to the strength that he'll have in this fighting style that's more suited to him and that is genetic and passed down. So he has to learn how to hone it. And I think that it was a little bit of an accident the first time, but there's something fun about fate also working in that way. So it's somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's, as the Tanjiro stan here, that's one of my favorite things about his character. You look at so many stories where the main character is, without a doubt, from the very beginning, the chosen one, based off of when they were born, who they were born to, what, time of day they were born in. They're all it's a story where that person clearly has to fight the big bad by the end, and they're the only ones that can take them down. But with Tanjiro, we're kind of getting the sense that yes, he has to fight the big bad, but is he the only one who can do it? We don't really know yet, because there's clearly all these other people that are way stronger than him. And so yes, obviously he has that fate, and he's already seen Muzan. He's already experience things. He's already seen a lower moon when it seems like the Hashira struggle to see any of the 12 Kizuki at all. So definitely there's that there, but it's not fully his story. And that's one of the things that I really like about it, is that he's not just this obvious chosen one. Maybe he is, but we don't know. It's kind of a mystery. But him changing this breathing style it was kind of a life or death, like, well, I've tapped into this memory that I had. Hopefully it saves me. And it did. And it just goes to show that there's more within him. And I think there's a lot of untapped power there that I can't wait to see unfold, because I love my boy.
Yeah. It's definitely a very interesting thing to think about, as Tanjiro is a main character with like such a good supporting cast around him. Like, is he the only one? Is he, the strongest, or is it going to be, the qualities of others that help to propel him forward in his own self-development, which is a really interesting thing to kind of ponder on. But looking back to some of the earliest parts of the season, when Tanjiro faces his first demon on the mountain with a Rokodaki, he wasn't even able to kill it. It wasn't until the sunlight hit that demon that he was truly safe. And we know that Tanjiro is kind-hearted in his fights and is someone who still shows respect to demons. Has Tanjiro still maintained that kindness demonstrated early on in not wanting to kill someone, or has he lost some of his innocence at this point and has accepted his new reality by season 1 end?
I think he's figured out how to manage it. I don't think he's really lost his innocence per se. I don't think he's really lost anything about him. I think he's learned to hone it. And I think he's learned to kind of know when to stop and know when not to stop. And he even says it to Giyu in episode 20 or 21. And he has that little speech where he tells him, like, in order to stop the chain of trauma and pain, I will bring down my blade without hesitation. Oh, come on. This kid's 15 and he's saying facts. But he understands that these demons still deserve that empathy, and they still deserve, the prayers. They still deserve to be treated that way, but it's after he defeats them. And so I think that's just, he's grown and he's learned that he can't hesitate, because they're going to get away then. And it just comes with that time and that training that he didn't have previously.
I completely resonate with that. That is exactly how I felt, of like, there is this control with him where it's just he sees the both sides of it. He knows what he has to do, but he knows that he has this empathy within himself to share that, because he knows that they were not demons originally. They all came from somewhere, and that is a huge theme of season 1, is really discovering that everyone came from somewhere. Again, like, don't judge everyone in the moment, but that could be a different story when a demon's in front of you. But Tanjiro is just like special in that aspect, where he, like what you said, Hannah, like, can control that. And we have really seen that in season 1, and it's gonna be really, really cool to see how he perceives that in another location that we'll see.
Yeah, I do think that he's maintained a lot of the kindness. What I think that he's let go of is a lot of the fear that was very strong at the beginning. And how could it not be? His entire family was slaughtered. And at this point, when he's fighting that first demon, I do think it's worth noting that this is before he's gone through the final selection, and he doesn't have a sword. He's like trying to take down this thing with a hatchet, like an old nasty thing. And in my opinion, there probably is something a bit more graceful and less intimidating about approaching a sword battle than an axe murderer situation. So that's probably something that would be unpleasant for anybody, as his first time. So I'm just going to say what I said. I think that he's let go of a lot of the fear, and he knows that this is the way that he's going to get Nezuko to a cure, potentially, is by taking down the ones that he needs to take down and getting information out of the ones that maybe he can. So
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, how we talked about control here and being able to, really hone your emotions into what you're going forward with, because I feel like that just kind of speaks to a lot of people right now, like being able to manage the anxieties and like, struggles that you face, but also being able to channel them into a direction where you can actually feel success and momentum going forward. I think that's kind of why Tanjiro becomes such like a, powerful main character at that point, is because he's able to really exemplify those positive values that we all strive for in ourselves, which love to see it, right? But of course, right, we got to talk about some demons, right? It's Demon Slayer. So believe it or not, Muzan only makes 3 appearances in season 1. And that's kind of chilling, right? Because we see him first during our encounter in the town where Tanjiro rescued the disappearing girls. We see him during Rui's flashback about his story to become a demon and Rui going down the mountain. And then, of course, we see him during the meeting of the lower ranks. With such little screen time, we have gotten such chilling performances from him. Why is it that you think he remains so reclusive? And, what vibes do you get knowing he's only been here for so long, but he has such a strong presence?
I remember going through season 1 for the first time and just being like, where is this man? Please show your face. And then when I listened to your episode a little bit ago, and then that lower rank meeting, when that first happened, messed me up so much, because I was like, okay, this is why. He's that type of main antagonist where you don't need to physically see him. There's enough mental depiction that translates into him being a physical being in front of you. Tanjiro has his sense. He has what he needs to do in order to track him down. And now finishing season 1, I am glad that he wasn't in all of it, because the way his side of kind of the demons work is with these 12 Kazuki, and seeing the kind of lower ranks fleshed out fully now, and now kind of seeing what is gonna happen next is so important to understand before fighting Muzan. So yeah,
I completely agree. I think that the mark of a really good villain is one where they don't need to be present a whole lot and you're still intimidated and frightened by them. You guys know I like to bring up my other pop culture references, but there's a really good example of this. In the movie Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins gives like one of the best villain performances of all time, and he won the Academy Award for that. He was only on screen for 16 minutes in that movie. And it's like, that's all that you needed, though, because he was terrifying, right? And his acting and performance was so strong. And I think that it's something similar here, like between the way that the animators handled this character and the differences in like the physical changes of this character. Like, who knows, honestly, maybe he was there more than we realize, because we've seen like drastic physical alterations in this character. And it's that idea that he could be anywhere or could be listening anywhere at any given time, as we've seen other demons like kind of react to either not answering Tanjiro, or in the brief moments where we did get to see Muzan interact with people that were, or with demons rather, that were serving underneath him. Like, he doesn't need to be there. He has a reputation and a presence that is so chilling that it's created a culture of fear in the entire world. So he doesn't really need to appear. And in addition to that, another reason he's probably reclusive is to be careful and guarded, because even though he seems infallible at this point, if he can have other people go fight for him and he doesn't have to risk his own life, then why would he? So he's scary.
So scary. I think it's really interesting the way they're doing this. I think we talked about it when he's first introduced. He was introduced all the way in episode 7, which usually when you get these main antagonists that are kind of elusive like this, you don't see them for seasons. It's kind of like, oh, the main big bad, they're there, but we're dealing with, these other antagonists that aren't as big of a problem, and we just don't have to worry about them. And then we're going to get a reveal later. Well, there's actually one that's lower than him that we still haven't gotten a reveal of yet. So I think it's a really interesting way to do it, but I think it's really good because we see what he looks like. We see that he can shapeshift. So we get that idea, like Emily said, that maybe he's more around than we think. But we also have been introduced to just how extreme his power is. But it still is like, we don't really know what it is. We just know that he's extremely powerful enough to just destroy the lower moons like it was nothing when we were struggling with the second to lowest one, you know? So it's definitely setting up the story well. And I think it's just really well written because we get the sense that this guy is crazy and he's going to be really hard to defeat, but we don't know just how hard it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think with Muzan specifically, right, his big brother aspect to him, like he doesn't even actually need to be in the room to know what's going on, right? He has that power to listen in on every demon that, you know, he's connected to. And looking back at the Tamari demon, just big sad because she was like, I'm gonna stand up for my master. And then she was like, bam, and it was gone. It was like, oh,
Insane.
Right? Of course, right, with me running the episode, we're gonna give all of the villains some love today, right? So let's talk about the demons of season 1. Tell me who your favorite demon from season 1 was and why.
I'm gonna have to go with Rui. And I think it's partially because I've been spending a lot of time with Jenna, our previous guest. Shout out to Jenna. I know she'll be listening into this. I think Rui was really the first one where we got like an actual backstory. We got some kind of moments here and there with other demons, but you can tell that we're kind of growing with these demons, and each time we get a stronger one, we learn more about them. So there's going to be more demons to come with bigger backstories, more emotional ones possibly. But we really first, like, this is the first time we get to see Muzan's true manipulation through his demons, and we get the sense that these demons, they've done horrible things, and you know, like Rui needed to die. Like that was not something that they could get out of because he had done horrible things, but he was also a manipulated child, you know, that had this family issue, that had this sickness, and Muzan used that weakness against him. And it just opens up a whole new can of worms because, as we've said, this story is not a story of good versus evil. The story is a story of choices, really, and decisions that people are making when they're faced with trauma and hardships. And we're seeing now that these demons kind of went through something similar. They just chose the other way, which in all reality, what are you going to do if you're in that situation? Probably, do you want to keep living? That might be your only choice then. No, I'm going to choose death, like with these parents that hate me, you know, or I think hate me, you know. So I think like the story of Rui has really opened up the story to wider possibilities, which is why I really enjoyed him as a character.
Completely agree. I have to go with Rui as well. Rui was just like what you said, just that first demon that really opened up the scope of what the demons might entail moving forward. And just on top of that, him creating this family, you know, it wasn't just him, it was, you know, everyone around him that encompassed him, which I think made just his story and just that moment so powerful. And also so intimate too. And yeah, out of all of them, he's definitely the one that, you know, watching his episodes and just his introduction again, it's iconic. You know, he is what he says he is. He's Rui. That's all I can say.
Rui is a very strong demon, and I think a really good choice. I think I'm going to cheat here a little bit, though. My favorite demon of the season is Nezuko.
Okay.
I was literally going to ask if we're allowed to say Nezuko.
It is kind of cheating, I think, but okay, we'll take it.
I mean, hey, qualifier, it is a demon, so.
That is true.
She is a demon, and I really think that people overlook her a lot, unfortunately, because at this point in the story, especially early on, she's not granted as much agency as her counterpart is. You know, she's not like a speaking character, and that's just always harder to draw more attention to somebody that's like a very quiet character. So the moments that she gets to shine are really, really cool. You know, and I really love the moment of like this hypnosis coming out, and you know, her treating humans as though they're her family and kind of taking on the demons and their reactions to that. I think that those are really great moments, is to see like, hey, you're supposed to be on our side. What do you think you're doing? And kind of watching her getting to kick their asses. It's pretty great. So other than that, probably Lady Tamayo, which also is probably cheating, but that counts. I think that she counts as a demon, and it's really cool to see that there is one other that is kind of in their court, you know, that's like kind of trying to help out, and to see somebody with centuries of practice get to use their blood demon art in another really unique way to kind of like put people into a trance or to drug them. So I think it's really cool to have the idea of like a demon doctor.
And I mean, I wouldn't call it super cheating because, right, we do understand that Nezuko, technically to a certain extent, was kind of a villain, right? Episode 1, we see Gihu ready to, you know, strike her down, and she is definitely not coherent enough to maybe fully understand that Tanjiro is there for her. And, you know, we know that Tamayo is a demon, but we don't know yet what happened in between when she became a demon and where she is right now. So, you know, we can, of course, speculate that she maybe was a villain at some point. Maybe she had a villain arc, but you never know. I will inquire here that my favorite demon probably was the Arrow Demon. Reason being here is that he was one of the few demons who, yes, we didn't get a full backstory for him, which I wish I would have seen. However, I do think it was important that we did get to see him dragging Tanjiro a little bit after he got beheaded. Like, he was like, no, I'm still alive and I'm gonna try and at least take you down with me. I think it was a really good, you know, like, I guess, example of how like really cruel these demons can be, even in their final moments, because of all of the choices that have been made in the world around them or against them. They still have this pain to deliver to the rest of the world, and still have these feelings that they need to impart or, you know, want to share with the world. Maybe it's not the best type of sharing and caring, but, you know, they're trying their best at least, right? Moving on to back to our Kamaboko squad. One of the main themes in the show is perseverance, right? And I do genuinely think that each of the Kamaboko characters demonstrates perseverance in their own way. Tell me about how you think one of the characters from the squad demonstrates that perseverance.
Well, this may not be the obvious choice, but I'll talk about Zenitsu for a minute. He definitely perseveres in his attractions, for sure.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
This boy is nothing if not persistent in that regard, right? And that's like the first thing that we see him do. The very first time he's on screen, he's begging this poor woman to marry him, and it's somebody that he's never even met. So when this man has a goal, he will do everything he can to attain it. Now his first problem is his fear again. And we talked about, like, Tanjiro was able to let go of some of that over the course of this season, and I think that Zenitsu did as well. And I think that part of the reason that happened was being inspired by the other two that are in this Molly crew. And I think that he's fairly easily influenced, which could certainly be a downfall, but luckily he's in really good company. And so I think he's going to be influenced to continue to persevere and get stronger and tap into that deep inner strength that we've seen that he has. So he shows his own kind of perseverance, definitely different than the others, but he's going to be a really strong asset to the team as we continue moving along.
Let me get my soapbox for me to stand on it about Tanjiro once again. I mean, I think Tanjiro is the epitome of perseverance. I think we can all kind of agree that another thing that I like about him being the main character and not necessarily being just a straight up chosen one is that he's not getting everything handed to him on a silver platter. Yes, was the Hinokami Kagura a bit of a like, oh, that was super helpful at the exact right time? Yes, of course. But it wasn't easy for him, and it took a lot out of him as well. And he was down for the count afterwards. And what we're seeing from him truly is that nothing that he's doing is coming extremely easy. Obviously, we know that maybe water breathing isn't even really meant for him, and yet he's able to nearly master it. And he's always the first to train. He's always the first to say, I will keep trying. He's always the first to say, I'm going to work harder. And just even his story is a story of perseverance. What are you going to do if you lose everyone except for one sibling, and that sibling has turned into something that's not human? You know, like, it would be so easy to just kind of become like, who knows what, especially when you're 13 years old. Like, what would you do? I would probably not be able to function for years. And he's able to, you know, kind of stick with, obviously he had Nezuko to save, so that was helpful, but he was able to stick with the training and keep working hard. And I think the other characters around him have more perseverance because of him as well. So I think he's just kind of like the poster child of perseverance, and I love that about him.
I completely resonate with that, as they all influence each other. And with Inosuke's perspective on this, you know, he always wants to be number one. And throughout season 1, you see that, you know, Zenitsu has his own, you know, way of getting his goals. Inosuke, you know, is just not saying Tanjiro's name correctly ever, and just wants to be the center of attention. And I find that so captivating and so just great. And I think that's why I fell in love with his character, and everyone else did, is just because of he has so much internal perseverance that the people around, especially Tanjiro, knows that it's going to shine. And if not that it's shining now, it's going to shine even more moving forward as they're together. And I think Inosuke, even though he might have his, you know, envious tendencies and, you know, irrational actions, he has a good heart, and Tanjiro sees that, and I know Zenitsu does as well. And it's going to be really, really really interesting to see how his perseverance of where he came from kind of unfolds even more with, you know, Tanjiro and Zenitsu by their side in the next arc.
I don't know why you would say, you know, Inosuke is irrational. Of course, headbutting a train is the first thing I would do. So, you know,
Of
maybe we're
course.
just on different trains of thought there.
I see what you did there. That was good.
Thank you.
Bryan.
That was good. That was good.
Of course, right? But we can't just forget about our silent half of the Komodo siblings, right? Nezuko goes from human to feral demon to sleepy demon, and then pulling out some awesome power against Rui in the Hinokami fight. Even though we can't hear her speak, we know that she has feelings too. And how has Nezuko grown up throughout the season?
I think the main part of growth that she has been able to attain is observation. It kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning of our talk, with how she, even though she's not on screen, she is still observing and being in that moment just as much as the next person. And especially being, you know, when she is in that little box, she is just as important, and she is learning, especially from the way Tanjiro is handling everything that is in front of him, whether that is the fights or just him talking and just him just being who he is. And I think Nezuko really cherishes that. And, you know, there's those parts where, you know, she may not be, you know, a fully speaking role, but she is very much pouring an entire monologue to Tanjiro, like, every time they're together. And I think if we just, you know that and accept that, then it just makes their bond even much more important than it has been.
Agreed. She's really grown just as much as Tanjiro throughout this first season, and I do think that unfortunately a little bit more of the spotlight is given to Tanjiro most of the time, and we love him, but she's worked really, really hard because if anything, she was given the more unfair disadvantage of the two of them. She not only was there and probably has like some memory and some concept of everything that happened in the house that he was not there to see. So she's like starting off with that trauma right away, but she also was changed into this demon. And so she has to relearn how to approach everything, and to fight against this inner urge that's trying to work its way out and trying to get her to succumb and to, make that choice, essentially, is what it comes down to. And she works really hard this entire season to not make that choice, even though it probably would be easier to give in to the nature, of the new characteristics and qualities that she has as a demon. She is really, really strong, and she continues to get stronger and stronger, so that by the end of the season, not only is she not giving in to those urges and tendencies, but she's using the abilities and the skills to fight against them, which is really incredible. So she's just going to keep getting stronger, and in some ways, she's the child of destiny too. I don't think you could have it without having both of them. So
We love Nezuko in this house. I mean, come on. I'm wearing her cardigan. I named my cat Nezuko. Like, let's be real here. My favorite thing about this story is obviously, like, I love Tanjiro. Like, we all know this, but their relationship is very personal to me. It's like it's the only sibling relationship on the internet or in media that just makes me like melt just about like how much they care for each other. But I kind of want to piggyback off of something that Emily said about the beginning, because we kind of forget, because we don't talk about it a lot. Nezuko's trauma is very similar to Tanjiro's, but very different because she was there and she got changed. And, obviously in this first episode, she's going through this transformation, and something that I thought about recently in that first episode when she's, got the hatchet in her mouth and Tanjiro's like, you can do it. Like, don't turn into a demon, or, whatever he was saying, he's trying to get through to her. She starts crying. Right. And to me in that moment, it was because like, she just went through all of this crap. Like, she just experienced watching her family die, trying to protect her little brother, not being able to, almost dying herself, as we assume. She wakes up and she's this creature that needs food. And she's like, all she can do is try to eat her brother, but she's fighting it. It's like she's sitting there and she's like, she is coherent that this is her brother, and that she's trying to fight everything within her to not kill the last living member of her family. And then we fast forward to the end of the season, and does she still have a lot to go through? Are we going to see some struggles in the future? Absolutely. But she has clearly worked extremely hard within herself, so that not only is she able to stop herself when it comes to her brother, who she's always with, but all these people around her, enough to protect them. And I just think that this kind of story goes so unnoticed by so many people. No, I agree with you. Tanjiro is not the main character. They are the main character together. The story is revolved around them, not just him. And
so
just
cute.
every moment, every brief moment that we see her fighting alongside him, the moment in Hinokami when they both unlock their fire power, because both of them have fire power. It's just chef's kiss. And I know I'm getting more away from the question, but I think it just goes to show how strong she is, how far we have to go, and just what she'll do to protect her brother, because she was able to force herself to not give in when she was transforming and feral enough to stop herself long enough that he didn't die, that she didn't devour him. And now she's able to just kind of live freely as she can. And I think we're going to see great things from her. I can't wait to see, more of her throughout the story. And as she develops as a character, I think it's going to get really good.
Amazing, amazing, right? Nezuko, I feel like has that struggle internally, and I definitely think there's a lot there to be said because of, her lack of screen time. I think being in the box and her, being able to kind of, I still believe that she understands her family as everyone, right? And so even in those moments when her mom comes to visit her throughout the season and such, it's really an amazing time for her to be able to demonstrate her own processing of some of those memories. So really good there. So we do have a question here submitted from Noah, and I do really like this. So Noah, go ahead and hit us with your question, please.
I got you. So this theme was like pretty important to me, at least. This is the first thing I thought of from season 1. Definitely wanted to give it a question. So here we go. Feeling connected and wanting a sense of belonging is an important theme to recognize in Demon Slayer season 1. We see this through Tanjiro and Nezuko, Inosuke and Zenitsu, plus Rui and the other demons. How might building close relationships progress these deeper characters through their next mission or arc?
Well, I think that it's going to help them build a really strong sense of trust, which you really, really need when you're going toe to toe with these demons and these constant battles that are going to keep happening over and over. I mean, it's in the name of the show, but like it's going to be constant. And they have ultimately a big mission to fulfill. At least Tanjiro and Nezuko do. They're really trying to find a way to turn her back into a human. And on a larger scale, even though not the entire Demon Slayer Corps is following that exact same mission, they are trying to eradicate the threat from humanity. So they're all for it, but it's going to take a lot of trust, which we see there's already a little bit of an issue with here at the very end of season 1 with the Hashira kind of doubting Tanjiro and Nezuko because it's not something that they've ever seen before. So Tanjiro already having a couple people backing him up, like Urokodaki, like Giyu, like Inosuke and Zenitsu, is already so important. And I think it's the thing that makes the difference in them living or dying at the end of this very moment. So it's already critical that these relationships continue to progress. On the flip side, it also makes things a little bit dangerous because the stakes are higher. People die fighting these demons. People are going to die in this show. We've already seen a little bit of loss in this show. The stakes are high, and the more deeply that you care about someone, the more it would hurt to lose them. So we're in for some hurting, I think, with the rest of this show. But the relationship building is going to be beautiful, and I think that it's going to continue to thrive between these 3 and the rest of the cast of characters that we have yet to meet. So,
yeah, I think these relationships are going to build a lot. We've already seen, especially like the Kamaboko squad, just kind of they haven't done a lot together yet, and they're already super close. You can tell that they really appreciate each other, even if Inosuke kind of acts like he doesn't. He's like, I do my own thing. He clearly cares about them. But what I like about this question is because, like I said earlier, with Tanjiro not really being the chosen one, I feel like so many stories that the main character is very isolated. Like they have their friends and their friends help them, but when it comes down to it, like they're the ones that have to take on like everything. And I think the story is a little bit different. I think we're kind of being shown that it's more of a team effort from everyone. It's more humanity against demons and the choices that have been made to put you on whatever side. And so I think that relationships are incredibly important. You need to have those people on your side. You need to have those teams of people that work well together, that can, fight a demon together, because we've also seen that it's kind of hard to take on a demon completely by yourself. I don't think Tanjiro's really been able to do it once. I think every single demon that he's defeated, he's gotten help. And he says that. He's like, I always get help. It's because of the people around me that, I'm able to do this. And I think it's such an important story, an important part of the story, I should say, that I think all these relationships that we're seeing pop up, and some that we're going to see in the future pop up, are going to be incredibly important. And it's also good to pull at our emotional heartstrings, because like Emily said, this is a war at the end of the day. And we can move forward in the story knowing that like we're probably going to lose some people. And what's interesting is how is that going to affect our characters? Is it going to make them have a harder time fighting because they're losing people? Or is it going to motivate them to work harder? Is it going to motivate them to avenge their deaths? We'll see. TBD.
You know, as Hannah says when she tells people to watch Attack on Titan, no one is safe. So that's that's where we'll start with relationship building, of course, right? And Emily, of course, talked about, right, like the closer you are to someone, you know, the harder it is to lose them. I think that's what's important here is that, you know, to a certain extent, from just the very beginning, Tanjiro is carrying on the values of his family and the honor of his family at that point. So the relationships he's lost there is what he's using to continue to propel himself forward as a demon slayer and to grow and, you know, fight the evils of the world. Specifically, like with his friends and such, like he is also bringing them with them. He's bringing the honor that he has brought from his family to his friends and showing them how to be, you know, the best demon slayer that they can, or inspire them to be a better version of themselves, so that way they can work together to fight it. And I think it just gives you that feeling that you're not ever alone, right? You always have, you know, someone in your court, you know, whether they're the most rambunctious group or not, somewhat irrelevant, because you're probably somewhere in that group too. And you just need to accept that for yourself and remember that there are people around you that are willing to take you to better places. Very good question, Noah. Thank you. That's very insightful and it was very meaningful. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Knowing where we are headed, though, with a brief glimpse into the next arc, and again, such a small amount of screen time for such a huge presence. That's right, we're talking about Emily's best boy, Rengoku. With what we've seen from him so far and how he conducts himself, what do you think that the Kamaboko squad will learn from him in the next arc?
This is really exciting because this is finally the first time where the three of them can really be in front of a Hashira and see what they can do. And this moment, I think, is going to be the most important moment to date, you know, what we've seen so far, because of the way Rengoku carries himself. I won't say any more specifically, but he just has this first impression of confidence, of grace, of trust, of honesty, and I think that that is most important. And his care as well will be shown, and I think Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Ananosuke, and Nezuko all will be influencing from that, from really knowing how to really care, especially when you're in front of someone that is a Hashira status, you know, and on top of it may have ties to Tanjiro's, you know, life. So it'll be really interesting to see that.
Oh my gosh, this is my boy. This is my favorite, very, very best boy. We haven't seen a whole lot of him so far, but what we have seen from him, I think, is so funny so far. You know, because all the time we've really had up to this point is basically just the reaction of all the Hashira here at the very end, and he's just like doing his single brain cell thing this entire time. He's just like, sounds bad, eyes wide open.
No blinking.
He's like, yeah,
That man doesn't blink.
Kill them. And Tanjiro's like, what? He's just so direct about it, but he seems to be, you know, a very direct person, but he's gonna be, I think, somebody that's really good in that regard for Tanjiro, especially to learn from, knowing, as we do now, that Tanjiro is more inclined naturally to this Hinokami Kagura fighting style, which is similar to what Rengoku is able to do. It's not the same, but it's probably the closest he's going to be able to get. And what better way to learn than from the Hashira that's like the current master of that. So he's going to be able, hopefully, to learn a little bit more about his own abilities and how to control them and how to train. And in turn, the rest of our little motley crew is just going to be able, I think, to learn about how a Hashira would approach a situation where they're fighting a demon that maybe is one of the 12 Kazuki, and how much composure and how much skill do they have that goes into that fight. So I think he's a really, really good first Hashira for them to be able to approach some of that fighting with in a more serious way than what we've seen so far.
Yeah. What is one thing that none of these characters have except for Nezuko? A big brother. They need a big brother. They need someone to like not necessarily be a father figure. I think they all kind of have that. Tanjiro has Urokodaki. He kind of became like a father for him for those years that he was training. And Inosuke, he doesn't have anything. He needs he needs family. Okay, that I sounded so casual when I said that. Yeah, Inosuke just needs family. He needs a father figure. He needs a big brother. But in reality, like Tanjiro kind of fills that big brother role for I think Zenitsu and Inosuke. But they need that just like leader that is gonna be like protective of them, but also can have fun with them and also would train them. And what I would hope for is for that, to just have him be kind of that person that they can look up to, that all four of them can look up to and just trust and learn from him. And I think Tanjiro obviously is going to learn something from him. We're kind of setting up that if anyone knows what this new breathing form that he's using, it's going to be Rengoku, because it's fire and flame. And so we're hoping that we're going to not only have Tanjiro learn something, but we as an audience will learn about what this is. So I think it's setting us up well for just a good relationship. And I would hope to see some big bro love. Like Tanjiro's never had a big bro. He needs a big bro. He's a great big bro. He needs one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to see, the almost, I would call it like a juxtaposition of like how Tanjiro and Rengoku both have these very strong like feelings of confidence and feelings of like power in their own right, but also are extremely different in the same breath, in the sense that like Tanjiro is a lot more approachable, most likely, than Rengoku, because Rengoku is very obviously like kind, generous, powerful, but also is very just aloof to a certain extent, and is still has his own personality, whereas at least Tanjiro can read the room a little bit better and be a little bit more friendly, if you will. So I do think that there's a very interesting dynamic to be created there. At this point in the episode, of course, I want to be able to include everyone's thoughts. So I have a space here for us to talk about any moments from the season that may have stood out to you or just may have been on your mind as you prepped for the episode.
One that I can think of initially, this stood out to me. This stood out to me in the beginning of season 1, when Inosuke and Tanjiro meet for the first time, and it is when I believe it was Inosuke and Zenitsu, they're like, they're fighting or whatever, and he comes out, and that's where that episode ended, and then they started the next one, and Tanjiro just coming face to face with him and literally breaking his ribs. Was that it? Like he broke some bones, and just like that whole moment was like just like obviously a whole wake up call for Inosuke, but just it was just such like a moment for the three of them that really just showed of, yeah, Tanjiro does really care about Zenitsu. He cares about this person too, but he needs a wake up call. And I think it was just a really cute, to an extent, moment of just the three of them being just clashing with each other literally in that moment.
They really got their relationship off to a cracked start there. That was a pun.
Oh, cracked because of the ribs.
Oh my god!
Right.
No, oh wait, it took. You got to give me 5 seconds for that to process. Oh,
I just don't.
God. Oh.
Yeah. First of all, just that whole interaction, like the whole introduction of the Kamaboko Squad, has me dying, because you got Tanjiro like being a total menace and just like going at him, like, but then being like, wait, we're demon slayers, we can't fight. But then an episode later, literally knocking Zenitsu out on purpose, which I, to this day, think that's one of the funniest moments, that he's just so annoyed with him that he literally hand swipes the guy, even though he clearly already cares about him so much. It's hilarious. I think this just is such a good first season. So much happens in this season, and from here on out, we're gonna get a little bit more deep into like these longer battles against harder foes. And this season, 26 episodes, we got multiple battles, all with very different outcomes and different storylines, and they got harder and harder. And I think just like overall, the whole season stood out to me as just a very good beginning. I think a lot of people think that it's like the weakest season or the weakest arc, when in reality, that should be season one. Season one should be good enough to get your attention. But a good show is going to continue to just get better and better and better, right? So I think it set us up super well. Of course, I'm gonna save episode 19 for later on in this conversation. But I think it did a really good job at getting all of the relationships together, getting a lot of characters introduced, understanding the power system. You know, it's straightforward. We get it. We understand it. And, you know, I think just the whole season as a whole was great.
It was a very strong first season, I think. And it's only going to keep getting better, just as Hannah and Noah have already attested. But it pulls you in with a really strong first episode. It breezes through the training arc that we know from other similar animes. It can last for a really long time. And that there's not something like bad about that necessarily, but it's something that we've seen before. What we haven't necessarily seen before is the way that they approach it here, and just flying through it. And then, you know, the final selection, and then we get right into the action of the story. And these first battles are going to be a little bit simpler and a little bit less strenuous than what's to come, because we have to build up to that. Like Tanjiro, Nezuko, and crew are not strong enough to be taken on Muzan head on, and yet they do still meet him in the first season, which again is something that's very unique in this show. So it's just such a good season. I can see why it's so incredibly popular, because I think that the storytelling is really well done. The animation is second to none in this show. You can tell how much love and energy and time was poured into it, and really great sound design and music too. You know, this theme song is one of the most iconic, probably in the short time that it's been around. You hear this song and you know exactly what it is. And you can't say that about every single, you know, anime OP. So just everything about it. Really strong, really wonderful. And I'm really, really excited for the future seasons and to see how they compare.
I love that. I think one moment I want to call attention to is the Hashira meeting. I do always love looking back at this episode, because I think it demonstrates the diversity in, you know, the Hashira, and it shows that really anyone can be a Hashira, right? You have people who are little babies, like Muichiro, who is like the smallest of them all, just a little short guy, but he seems very sharp. And, you know, him flicking the rock at Tanjiro was just a very like subtle way of saying, hey, or I think Emily said it best, like, hey, the adults are talking, like, it's your time to step away. Like, that was an amazing comparison. Or, you know, even Guillaume, who is, you know, very different in, of course, like his just stance in general. He's very big, very strong, of course, from what it looks like, but he also demonstrates that empathy of like, oh, their suffering must be so great, we should end it. And then, of course, there's someone like Sanemi who's like, let me get a mask.
How's that again?
Oh my gosh. Incredible.
Wow. Good job.
Petition to have Bryan replace Sonomi's voice actor.
Oh man. It's just
Sonomi's voice actor.
Coming for jobs, folks. I'm coming for him.
Oh my god.
But then, of course, right, you also have other Hashiras like Mitsuri, who kind of serves as that narrator. You know, I assume that maybe like she has a diary in the background that she's documenting all of this in to like talk to herself about later. And then, you know, just seeing everyone in their different stature, in their different dressing styles, like it definitely just describes what we're going to see in the future, which I think is just a really nice way of foreshadowing. Like, of course, right, looking at Tengen, you see he's using two different swords, and you see that, you know, he's a lot taller and he's got more ostentatious wear on. And so there's just so many small details that I think throughout the show really develop what the story is and gives you a lot of feeling for characters overall. So that way you can really get to know them, even if they don't have a lot of screen time. You get a very strong sense of who they are very quickly, which I think is really important for an anime. I think looking at other shows that I've watched, right, and, you know, talking about how the big bad, you know, isn't always there right in season one. I mean, Naruto, I'm not even there yet. And I'm literally like 535 episodes in. And I still don't know who the like ultimate bad guy is going to be. We're not even there yet. So like for a show to be able to, you know, draw these parallels so early on just speaks to the quality of the writing here, and really, you know, a great, you know, accolade for the manga to be able to achieve. All right. Well, I mean, any other thoughts of season one in general?
Okay, since we're talking about the villain, this popped into my head, and you know I like to make references to Avatar: Last Airbender because I freaking love that show too. I feel like I drag on Avatar a lot because I'm always like, oh, Demon Slayer does this better. But I think that it's done really well in Avatar: Last Airbender because they went the very different route where we didn't see the main villain's face until season 3, which was the final season. And I just think it's interesting to see the difference in the way they're doing things when the story, in my opinion, there's a lot of similarities from Demon Slayer to Avatar: Last Airbender. Obviously, it's not like the same story, but like there's similarities. I think the main characters, you can say, have a lot of similarities, and just like the story of these boys that lose everything and make friends along the way, and that becomes their new family. But I think there's something to be said about introducing the villain so soon and having your main character actually interact with that villain so soon, because I think it'll make that final battle that we can assume is going to happen be a little bit more personal, because not only did this main villain cause the problem that Tanjiro's going through, but also he's already gotten to see him. He's already gotten to kind of, maybe even though he didn't see his great power, understand that he's pretty powerful, considering he turned someone into a demon literally right there like that. No one else around noticed except for Tanjiro because he has an eye for that. You know, and I think it's just going to make whatever happens in the end more emotional, more satisfying, depending on how it goes. And I think that's just like, it's interesting that they've set it up so well just in season 1. When in Avatar, like season 1, like who was the main bad guy? We barely even knew it was this guy named Ozai. It was Zuko. And by the time the end of the story, when we're fighting him, this is the first time we've really interacted with him. This is the first time the character is interacting with him. So it feels like more removed almost. So I think that this is just something that Demon Slayer does really well. Rant, tangent, done.
No such thing. Well, any last thoughts just in general on season 1 before we go to favorite moments?
I guess I just have to quickly second the Hashiras in general. It just really gives a great scope of like what we're gonna see in the future, and everyone, you know, being introduced respectively in their own way towards the end of season 1 was just iconic, and it really just kind of lays the groundwork for what we could potentially see in, you know, till the end of the story.
And that's what I like about that episode. It's just every time I look back at season 1, and like when I think about like my favorite episodes of it, that always comes up as one of them. And even though there's not even a fight scene there, and like, you know, obviously we all talked about how Demon Slayer's animation is, you know, one of its best qualities, but that episode just has such good writing because it's not only that initial meeting, but it's also when they're meeting at night, when they're talking about like strategy as to how they're really going to finish out and close this demon war. Essentially, they all get another, we all get another peek into how they perceive the world around them and what they believe are the next steps for the Demon Slayer Corps. You see Shinobu giving this very, intellectual standpoint of how to approach it. Obviously, there's Rengoku saying, let's go after it. And then, everyone has their own little piece to say. So I definitely think the expose that we get on these characters early on is a great way to, give us something to look forward to as well, right? Because obviously anime takes forever to produce. So we're going to be waiting for the final season until like 2027. So we'll get there when we get there, folks.
No,
Oh,
too
God.
long. It's too long.
It's too
Way
long.
too long.
No Attack on Titan for us. Please, no part 5, part 3 final seasons.
Please do not be splitting parts into parts. Please.
All right. Well, we always like to end our show, of course, with our favorite moments. And I'll start. One of my hands down favorite moments, I'm sure no one is going to find this surprising, but was, of course, seeing Zenitsu in the moonlight after his thunderclap and flash at Sixfold. Nothing more powerful than my anxious boy pulling through at his final moments. And of course, what an amazing turnaround from falling almost on his head to a full-blown Demon Slayer. So proud of you, Zenitsu.
We love Zenitsu. No one's gonna find this surprising whatsoever. Hinokami, come on. Everything about episode 19, it still is so high ranked up there. I can't say it's my favorite moment from the story or even from the anime, because what's to come is just stuff of it's legendary. But in season 1, I don't think anything touches Hinokami for me. Just the music, introducing Kamado Tanjo no Uta, which is Tanjo Kamado's song. The voice acting, the introduction of Hinokami Kagura, the way Nezuko and Tanjiro work together in that moment. I get chills thinking about it. It's the scene that I rewatch over and over and over again from season 1. And I think that kind of changed the trajectory of the story and of the show. I think that this is when the show really gained that popularity that we know and love now. This is when people that don't watch anime were going, oh, what is this show and why is it so good? And of course, I love my boy, I love Tanjiro, and I love their relationship as siblings. So it kind of condensed everything that I love about the show into like a 3-minute fight. Not to mention the animation. It took a step up after that scene. Like the Hinokami Kagura, like flames being animated was.
And the pink flame, of course. Can't forget those either.
And
his orange flames and her pink flames, and just them both awakening their firepower together to save each other, and Nezuko not waking up until her mom tells her that her brother's gonna die. Oh.
That's really hard to one up. My favorite, like that is just such a great moment that I have too, and it is just such a great turning point for the show. But I guess just from a bigger scope, I just love the sequence of events of Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, and I guess Nezuko as well, fighting on the mountain, and them panning between person to person of who they were up against was just so gripping and just so exciting to me. So that includes Zenitsu's moment, that includes like the Inosuke and Tanjiro versus the spider dad too, and just that whole sequence was so, I could rewatch that until the Hinokami, it's just such a great confrontation, and it's also really like the first time they're all kind of like working together in a way, even though they're not really together, but they know they have to do these things in order to stay alive. And yeah, I also thought Zenitsu was gonna die in that moment, so that was, yeah, just everything was like, what is happening? But it's amazing.
All 3 of them had literally like near death life flashing before your
Yep.
eyes moments,
Yep.
every single one of them.
Literally.
What a trio.
Oh man, this is hard because it really is such a strong first season. It's hard to pick one moment, but the one that's coming to my mind that I'm just going to talk about first is the final selection arc. I think is where I really got pulled in. I mean, we had a really strong episode. We went through our very short training arc, but final selection happened so quickly that I was afraid for our main character. You know, living through the trauma of some other shows that have come out recently where nobody is safe. It's like, what's going to happen here? Is this too soon? Is he ready for this? And the ominous nature of the task at hand, combined with the beauty of the scenery that's around it, I was just so drawn into it. The design of the wisteria trees, and then this disgusting, like, misformed, gross demon is where we're starting. This is like the baseline for the show. And I thought that it was a really strong arc. I also thought it was really nice to have the former demon slayers that Irokadaki had attempted to train that had fallen victim to the same demon, and then seeing Tanjiro be the one to pull through. I think that was where I became like really emotionally invested in the show. And so I think that that might be one of my favorite moments from the first season.
I like that you brought up final selection specifically because I think what really has, I think you've talked about it, and I think we've all had moments where we've really enjoyed this, but the sound design, I think knowing that was the first time, I'm pretty sure that we heard the opening thread sound, that high-pitched ping, and it always, like, it catches you because you know, like, all right, like sometimes like you get distracted because like, you know, it's in another language and sometimes it's hard to read and it's late at night, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden you hear the ping and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
You're like SpongeBob, the caveman SpongeBob. I mean, that's at least me.
Caveman SpongeBob.
Oh my god. I can't.
Well, then Inosuke is Doodle Bob.
Oh,
For
also,
anyone listening, go for it.
No, go ahead. I was
Oh, I
going
was
to change
saying-
subject, so.
For anyone listening, if you haven't already seen the SpongeBob anime on YouTube, it's about 25 minutes long.
Bryan.
It's so good. I have to.
What?
Okay,
That's a thing?
brief tangent. Yeah, so someone really just got on their own like project and they animated a full SpongeBob anime. I'll send it to you after this because it's like so worth the 25 minutes. So
Are you
good.
sure? Are you sure that wasn't you who made it?
Trust me, if that was me, I wish I would have had a little bit more money off the project. But hey, nonetheless, we prevail.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
All
my
right.
gosh.
Any last thoughts before we fully wrap it up today, folks?
What a great season 1. Can't wait for what's to come.
Me too. Looking forward to season 2, and thank you for being here for the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Solid introduction. Solid.
Well, then I guess as Shinobu does, it is time for us to float like a butterfly away. And so that is all the time we have today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show today and that you'll join us next week as we get on to the Mugen train and spiral forward. Don't forget, please follow our friend Noah. He, again, is at Noah Glows on his socials for Instagram and TikTok. He has such great videos. He's done giveaways. He loves Attack on Titan. And if you love anime, you'll definitely love all of his pages. So please go give him that follow. Of course, we are the @Hashira Half Hour on our socials. And if you loved what you saw today or heard today, please go ahead and give us a follow as well. But of course, umai.
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 Umai!